it's Michaela from Team Retro, where we like retro games, we like roguelikes, and we like the devices that bring them to us. So recently I bought an Anbernic RG300 to give as a birthday present to a friend of mine, and I was actually so impressed by this little device that I bought a second one for myself. Now this device runs an older chipset than the ones in current devices like the Powkiddy RGB10 Max or the RG351P, and other devices that utilize that newer chipset. A device like this is barely going to get PlayStation 1 emulation, but it does a phenomenal job emulating older systems like Game Boy, NES, Genesis, Game Gear, TurboGrafx-16, and even some older Final Burn arcade games. I spent about $60 to buy this on Amazon, which would definitely make it one of the more budget-friendly emulation devices out there. But if you were to go elsewhere like AliExpress, you might be able to find a device like this for about $40 to $50. And even at that price, you're getting a nice looking device that actually has a pretty premium feel to it. It has a wonderful screen, and the size makes it perfect for travel. So you can throw this in a pocket, you could throw this in a book bag, and you can just take it out wherever you are and just play some retro games. The only thing about this device that I'm not a fan of are the colored A, B, X, and Y buttons, but I ordered some replacements from Sakura Retro Modding on Etsy, and I'll include a link to that store in the description. Now, I'm not going to get those buttons until September, but when I do, I will post another video on how to do that swap out. Another thing I really like about this device is the user replaceable battery, so if anything were to happen to this battery down the line, I could just go on Amazon and buy a new one. So let's talk about the purpose of this video. I'm going to show you how to replace the SD card that comes with the unit with a newer one, and we're also going to flash updated firmware to this device. We're also going to set up a second SD card for ROMs, and we're going to install some palette filters in the Gambate emulator just so that you have different color options when emulating Game Boy games. And then finally, we're going to test out a few systems, and we're just going to see what this system can actually do as far as emulation. Now, the channel did hit a milestone right before I started making this video. We did reach 100 subscribers, which I'm very excited about. Thank you all so much for your subscriptions and your support. So I am going to be doing a giveaway at the end of this video, so stay tuned for details of what that giveaway is. All right, enough chatter. Let's get into it. Let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to actually open up the battery cover, and we need to pop this battery out. And if you look behind the battery, there is an SD card covered up by a sticker. We're going to go ahead and we're going to peel the sticker off. It is a little bit stubborn, so it may take you a few tries. Just be careful that pieces of the sticker don't fall into the unit itself. Once that sticker is removed, we can go ahead and take the SD card out. And you'll notice that it's just one of these junky SD cards that you typically get with these devices. These have a faulty rate, so we're going to actually replace this with a SanDisk 16GB SD card. I'll include a link in the description to the SD card that I bought. For now, just go ahead and set this SD card aside. Keep it in a safe place, just in case. On our computer, we're going to navigate to this website. I'll include a link in the description. It's going to tell you that they have a brand new site. Don't go to the brand new site because that site doesn't have the firmware that we need. You can go ahead and stay on the old site. And if you scroll down a little bit, you're going to see a picture of our RG300. We're going to click the image for V3 IPS, And once you click that image, your firmware download will automatically start. Just go ahead and let that download, and then we're going to move on to the install. Now this downloads as a 7-zip file, so let's go ahead and right-click the file. We're going to go to 7-zip, and we're just going to click extract here right to the downloads folder. And you could see there's a brand new IMG file. That's what we're going to use. Now you can use any memory card writing software you choose, but my preference is Win32 Disk Imager. I'll include a link in the description. Go ahead and open the program and pick the appropriate drive letter for your new SD card. Now let's click the folder browse button, and once that opens up, we can select our RG300 IMG file. Click open, and then click write to write the image to the SD card. Then go ahead, grab a cup of coffee, grab your beverage of choice, and then come back when it's done. Once the drive is written, you're going to get a whole mess of format disk options. Just cancel out of all of them. Now we're going to use another program called Minitool Partition Wizard to add some space to our retro FW partition on this new SD card. You'll notice there's about 13 gigs of unallocated space, so we do want to have access to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually right-click Retro FW, and then we're going to click Extend. And then drag this slider all the way to the right, and it's going to take all of that unallocated space and add it to the partition. Go ahead and click OK, and then click Apply. It's going to ask you to confirm. Go ahead and commit. And once it says it's applied all the changes successfully, we can go ahead and take a look, and we'll notice that that 13 gigabytes is now allocated to our retro FW partition. Now we're going to do a couple of things to this SD card before we put it back in the unit, just to make our experience a little bit more pleasant with playing games on this device. We're going to download these Gambate resources from this GitHub page. I'll include the link in the description as always. We're just going to go to code, and we're going to download zip, and it's a very quick download. Go ahead and right click the zipped file. Just click extract all. If you want to use 7-zip, you can use that too. I just used the built-in Windows unzipper for this file. Go ahead and click extract, and the files will go into a separate unzipped folder. Let's go ahead and open up another Explorer window with our retro FW partition, and we're going to create a new folder here and name it period Gambate. Make sure you put that period in first. Normally this is a folder that auto-generates when you open up the emulator for the first time, but we're setting this up before putting the SD card in the RG300, so we have to create the folder ourselves. Go ahead and go into that folder, and we're going to drag the borders and the palettes folder from the file that we just unzipped right into the SD card under the period Gambate folder. What that's going to do is it's going to give us access to some borders and some palettes when we're actually playing Game Boy games, and we'll see that in action in a little bit. One last thing we need to do with this SD card is we need to go into EMUs, and we need to go to GPSP. If you plan on playing Game Boy Advance games, you're going to want to put the GBA_BIOS.bin in this folder. Unfortunately, I can't show you where to get that, but a quick Google search will give you what you need. Now, adding ROMs on the second SD card is super easy. It's just drag and drop. The only thing you need to make sure is that the SD card is formatted as FAT32, and I use a program called GUI format in order to effectively and easily do that, and I'll include a link in the description to that program. Alright, time to turn this thing on and see what it can do. You get the Anbernic logo on startup, which is nice. And here's our operating system. It's very simplistic. You use L and R to navigate the options on the top. You also use the D-pad to pick your emulators. And you can see there's a whole lot of emulators. There's SNES, there's two Atari ones, there's WonderSwan Color, Neo Geo Pocket Color, and there's a whole bunch of ports preloaded on this Retro FW firmware. Now granted, they are hit or miss. Cannonball automatically crashes, but most of them work. If we go to eDuke32, that one boots up no problem. And most of these ports seem to run without an issue. You can use the D-pad to navigate the menus, use the buttons to hit new game, and once you're in, you can use the buttons as the developers programmed them. Here's another interesting port. It's a freeware Zelda game that looks like it uses A Link to the Past assets. It's not really that great, and I'm sure there's some copyright issues here, but nonetheless, the game works. If you want to play it, it's here. Here's the Streets of Rage remake. This is actually a very popular remake, and it's kind of fun to play. This is also here and functions very well if you decide you want to play this game on the RG300. Now let's go into the Gambate emulator for regular Game Boy games. If you notice, the default is the typical green that you would have seen on an original Game Boy. And I do apologize, my camera kinda wonked out when it saw the green. That's not what the screen actually looks like. But anyway, in the mono palette settings, you can actually set it to no palette if you prefer the regular black and white look of the Game Boy Pocket. And it'll just give you that clean black and white image. But also, if we go back into that mono palette setting, all the palettes that we downloaded before are in this menu. And you can even pick the color palettes that were available on a Game Boy Color if you pressed a certain button combination. And you can choose from those default palettes, or you can pick a palette that actually best suits the game you're playing. So in this case, we're actually going to scroll down to the Pokemon Blue US palette. And while it's not quite the same as the Super Game Boy enhancements that you would unlock by using the MGBA emulator in RetroArch, it's still pretty nice looking. The characters look the right color, and while it's not perfect, it does make the game a little bit easier to play other than looking at the green or the black and white. Now, another optional setting you can use in Gambate is if you go back into settings and you go to controls, go ahead and select alternate. What that will do is it'll make Y, B, and B, A. And you don't have to do this if you're comfortable with the default, but I personally think this feels much more comfortable. And the NES emulator in the RG300 automatically has this on by default as well, and just having it set up that way, it feels more like a Super Nintendo, and it just feels a lot more comfortable. So you may want to adjust this in your other emulators as well. And I just want to temper your expectations on PS1 performance. Chrono Cross is running really slow here. You can hear how slow the audio sounds compared to how it's supposed to sound. Plus, there are some graphical issues here. There's menus missing and all that. So I really wouldn't expect great performance out of most of the PS1 library. However, a game like Castlevania Symphony of the Night will play just fine, and this is an amazing game, and I may actually do a replay right on this device, because it's been a while since I've gone through this game. So, as long as you stick to the 2D games, PS1 should be okay, but 3D games are going to give you a struggle. This is SNES gameplay. This is Super Street Fighter 2. And I actually had to increase the frame skip to 1 because this was also running a little bit more sluggish than I expected it to. Which means that the special chip SNES games like Star Fox are not going to run well on this system at all. So let's sum up why you might want to buy a device that's dated like the RG300 in 2021 when there are better options out there. For starters, the IPS screen is beautiful. I actually find this device to be nicer to look at than the RG351P. The screen is also tempered glass, so it's resistant to scratching. It's nice and compact and light. It could fit in a pocket for no problem if you're traveling or if you're just going somewhere where there's going to be a bit of a wait, like the doctor's office. You could just take this out of your pocket and you can play a retro game while you're waiting to be called. Or maybe you're waiting in the car for your son or daughter to get out of practice or get out of school and you have a few minutes to spare. You can just take this out of your pocket and you could play a retro game. Alright, that'll do it for this video, but before I go, let me show you what I'm actually giving away for reaching 100 subscribers. So this is the yellow Powkiddy V90. I bought this right when I was starting to get into retro gaming as a hobby. And when I was taking the cover off of the screen, I don't know what I did, if I scratched it or if there's some adhesive there, but there is a little mark on the bottom left of the screen. And as a result, I just haven't really played this device as much as I should have. It's a little thing that bothers me, but maybe it won't bother you. I flashed the Mayu custom firmware on a SanDisk SD card, so I will also include that SD card in the giveaway. And you could see it works just fine. You really don't see the scratch while you're playing. And that scratch may actually just be some adhesive that you can take out. Now, this device doesn't have a real-time clock in it, so I put a custom ROM of Pokemon Crystal to where I can just change the clock whenever I want to. I'll include that in the SD card as well. Now, this device has the form factor of a Game Boy Advance SP, and it is just as pocketable as an RG300, so let's say you want to play some Shaq Fu in the waiting room at the doctor's, you could totally play this game as horribly as I am right now. And it's overall a very nice device. I just decided that it wasn't for me, and that's also part of why I bought the RG300, because it was meant to be a replacement for this Powkiddy V90. Now, when I bought this system, I also bought a replacement higher capacity battery for it. These are just Nokia cell phone batteries, and they're very easily user replaceable. I'll include that battery as well, and it actually came as a 2-pack, so if I find the 2-pack, I will include that as well. Details for how to enter the giveaway will be in the video description, and I'll leave it up for about a week and a half, and I will contact the winner, of course. I really didn't expect to ramble on about the RG300 for 20 minutes, but turns out it's a really great device, and I wanted you to be able to get the most out of it if you're interested in buying one or you have one already. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And if this video was helpful to you in any way, please be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.